wanted to do a video today talking about what to look for when you're looking for a good quality shear. We're going to use the word shears and to describe different aspects of what you were looking for when you're buying quality shears. First question is, Bonnie, what's the difference between scissors and shears?
Well, I've got two of them here. Which is which?
I would guess this is a shear and this is a scissor.
Well, by the dictionary, a shear is anything that's over 6 inches that you put more than one finger in. So by the dictionary, this would be a shear.
Okay.
However, the dictionary is wrong. This is a shear. If you're in the beauty industry and you have a good quality tool, though you need to call them shears.
Okay.
Unless you go to England, you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, you go to some of the British Commonwealth countries, and in those countries, shears are for sheep, hedges, and goats. So over there, you need to call them scissors. Other than being family owned and that type of thing, but what makes our shear company different is that we're a boutique shear company. We design our shears not only just for the stylists, but also for the sharpeners. And that's why you'll hear us talking so much about the sharpening the shears and maintaining the shears.
So what you're saying is we actually have 4 quality control levels. We've got the factory level.
Yes.
Then we have the level when they come to us.
Yes.
Then we have the level where the sharpener looks at them.
Yep.
And then the final, of course, would be the inspection of the stylists themselves.
Yes. And believe me, our sharpeners that buy our shears and sell them to you, they're very, very picky. Now, let's get into why do you need a good pair of shears? Why should you invest in quality shears? Well, number one, you can damage your client's hair if you don't have a good cutting tool. These are some pictures of hair that's been cut with dull, poor quality scissors. Your clients may have frizzy hair, split ends, because not the products they're using, but because of the tools you're cutting their hair with. That's pretty sad. If you're the one that's causing the damage to their hair, you're the one that's causing the split ends. And maybe their hair doesn't grow because of the split ends and it keeps breaking off and they're wanting length, and you're the one that's keeping them from getting long hair. So you want to have, number one reason you want quality shears, it's because it's an investment in your clients to keep them happy and to give them healthy hair. Now, you want to buy your shears based on your skill level, the type of cutting you're doing, and the amount of cutting you're doing, and also your cutting personality. Now, your skill level, you're professionals now, so you want to buy quality tools. You don't want to buy your tools, whether it's clippers, dryers, or whatever, where the kitchen stylist is buying their tools.
You want to get them from Walmart?
Walmart, yeah. Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Also, you want to buy the shears of the type of cutting that you're doing. If you are a cook, you're not going to do all your cooking with a spatula, are you? Same way with your cutting tools. You're going to need to have a variety of tools for the different type of cutting you're doing. Now today we're going to talk about that main shear that you do most of your cutting with. But you're going to want to add to your collection. So you want to have an idea what type of cutting. Are you going to be slide cutting, slithering, straight cutting, scissor over comb? What type of technique are you wanting that shear to specifically do for you, and buy something for that. And also the amount of cutting. If you are doing a lot of cutting, you want to invest in better shears. We get the question all the time about hair extensions. What do you suggest, Gene?
Well, hair extensions, they pay a lot of money for hair extensions, and the stylist takes a lot of time putting it in. And then a lot of times they were told in school to use their cheap scissors to cut hair extensions.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And
on stage, in fact.
On stage, in fact, at a hair show. And then what happens is they take those cheap scissors, they cut the hair has no movement, it just moves in block and stuff like that, and it looks like a $5 haircut. They just paid anywhere from $200 to $2,000 for that head of hair, and they got a $10 haircut.
Yeah.
So you need good quality tools so you can put texture and movement into the hair. Also, is it true you'll have to get your shears sharpened more often if you're cutting extensions? Yes. If you get them sharpened twice a year, you may have to get them sharpened 3 times a year. If you get them sharpened once a year, maybe 2 times a year. That's $25. You're charging $500, $600, $1,000 for hair. You can afford $25 for a haircut. And
you ought to be able to.
You'd be surprised at how many people go one place to get the hair installed, and go to another place to get it cut right, simply because the people that are installing it don't cut the hair right. And you want to get all that money. You don't want to get half of it. You want to get it all.
You mean those $50 weaves are going somewhere else?
Yeah, they're going somewhere else to get them cut. That's for sure. So,
Cutting personality. Now, I'm not a hairstylist. I'm a sharpener, and I train sharpeners. But I love to watch people cut hair. I'm just amazed at the talent, the artistry. And I've noticed in watching people cut hair that they fall into one of, well, sometimes a mixture of these personalities. And I call them the eagle, the lion, and the gorilla. And each one of them have their benefits and their negative things. So they can each learn from each other. So let me tell you about them, and you notice whether you fall in which category you fall in. If you're in school, if you're in cosmetology school right now, or if you're a cosmetology teacher, you are probably an eagle. Most of the cosmetology instructors we've come across are eagles. I call them eagles because they look like an eagle. They usually hold their shears very upright. They have their elbows out here, and they're able to cut in, slide through the hair, and they're very graceful. They do nice clean partings. They can do very perfect haircuts. It'll be the same one time and time again. A lot of your celebrity stylists are eagles because they can give that client the same haircut. Or if they're on set, if they have to have a certain hairstyle in scene one and then 2 weeks later have to look exactly the same, they can do that. Their stations are immaculate, neat, clean, everything's organized. They don't own a lot of shears, but when they buy shears, and you can attest to this, they are very, very picky. They get exactly what they want, and they'll spend the money for them. They'll have good shears, and they love them, and they name them, and they take good care of them. And I can tell when someone comes to me to sharpen, if they're an eagle, their shears are usually oiled and clean, and we'll be doing some of the things we'll talk about later today. But that's the eagles. Very particular, but they're very slow. They tend to sometimes burn out in the business. Because they do so much repetitive same haircuts. Now I'm going to go the other extreme. And if you go to the hair shows and you look up on stage and you see the guy cutting hair and the hair's flying all over the place, those are usually gorilla stylists. They cut with very fast, very passionate, hair is flying. They never can really do two haircuts alike. There'll always be something that's influenced them, maybe the movie they watched last night. I hope it's not Walking Dead. But they will design something for that day. They're very artistic. A lot of the new trends in hair come from the gorillas. They are interesting to watch on stage. Hair is flying all over the place. They don't worry about how they pick up their shears, how they'll hold them any which way. They don't worry about body positioning, how they hold their bodies. Their station's usually a jumbled up mess. There's hair all over the floor. They buy a lot of shears, but only because they're always getting stolen or lost.
Because they don't keep up with them.
They don't keep up with them. They don't keep up with them. They don't take care of their little babies. And then in between are the lions. And the lions are the ones that go to the hair shows and they come home broke because they buy every gizmo and every gadget out there. They watch what the gorilla does and they take it and make it their own. They watch what the eagle does. They'll put it together and make something repeatable that they can do. They're very brave. They'll pick up a new tool. They'll try it out on the first client that comes in. They love to go to classes. They love to learn. Their stations is kind of an organized mess. But you want to keep if you own a salon or you're in a school, you want to keep your lion between your eagle and your gorilla because they keep peace in the jungle. Because when the gorilla can't find the water bottle, they'll go borrow from the eagle and feathers are flying.
I've seen classes where you had a gorilla and an eagle both teaching the class.
That was hilarious.
And the gorilla would be over there, halfway through. He's through with the haircut. He's explained everything. He sits down in the chair and sits like this and watches the eagle cut and then makes jokes about how the eagle's cutting. But it's fun and entertaining to watch.
And they're both beautiful haircuts. They were both beautiful
both gorgeous haircuts. Yeah. It's just two different ways of looking at it.
So we're going to go to the letters in the word shears. And the S in the word, the first letter in the word shears is S. And that stands for steel. Now the steel is important. That's going to determine how long your shears are going to last you. It's not the most important thing about the shears. But the steel is, if it's not good steel, it's not going to hold an edge. You can't keep them that sharp. And that's what gives the longevity over the years. Now, there's two elements that make up steel, and they always, always, always make up steel, and that's iron and carbon. That's just what steel is. You may have studied that in school. Now, to the iron and carbon are added things like alloys. Do y'all remember that? I used to teach this, high school science.
Well, you know, I know we were in New York one time and picked up a folder and from a scissor company and a shear company, and it says, our shears won't rust because our steel has no iron in it. And of course, we know that can't be steel because iron and carbon make up steel. And also, every once in a while, you'll hear salesmen say these shears are 100% cobalt, or 50% cobalt. And what they really mean is they're 1% cobalt or 1/2% cobalt. So you just have to watch and understand what people are saying about the shears sometimes. And
they may not be lying. They may just be ill-informed.
Ill-informed and not understand exactly what they're talking about. But if they do mislead you in something like that, they might be misleading you in other things too. So you just need to be aware of that.
Now, alloys are added to the steel, and those are added in small amounts to give certain properties of it. Is this all that boring stuff that you hated in school? But we're going to talk about it, and I'm trying to make it interesting to you. Chromium. Chromium is that shiny metal, and it's usually added in about maybe 11% to the steel to make it stainless steel. That's what stainless steel is. It's steel that has chromium added to it. Now, other alloys that you're going to see added to steel are some of the heavy metals like molybdenum, vanadium, cobalt. All of those are going to give properties and make your shears and your metals stronger. And you'll see those added into shears that typically would have a sharper, thinner edge for slide cutting or slithering. Sometimes these will have designer names like ATS 314 or VG10. There may be some other type steels that will come out in the future. These are brand names of types of steel that tells you that this is a better steel. Different steels is better for different purposes. Now, all of the steel is tempered. That means they bring it at very high temperatures, bring it at very low temperatures, and that's what hardens the steel. Now, you might see some scissors that'll say ice tempered. We laugh when we say that ice means what?
I cut everything but hair.
Yeah. All of them are going to be tempered. That's just part of it. And usually some of the really, really cheap scissors will say ice tempered. That's not a brand name, by the way.
Rockwell Hardness is how hard the steel is. When you're talking about Rockwell Hardness, you want your shears to be between 58 and 62. Which, and when they measure Rockwell, they'll give a 1 degree variance either way. So if it says 58, it can be 57 to 59, 60 can be 59 to 61. But you want it between 58 and 62 because if it's too soft, it won't hold an edge. And if you can sharpen it and the edge will roll over, they won't stay sharp very long. And if it's too hard, they become very brittle and you could drop them on the floor and they could break. They want it to be at least 440C or better.
Okay, yeah.
420C, which is a lot of your Pakistani shears and stuff are made of that. It's softer metal. It's around 54, anywhere from 52 to 54.
Surgical steel.
That's surgical steel.
Yeah, it's what surgeons use is a lower quality steel.
And you'd be surprised at how cheap the shears are that surgeons use.
Yeah.
We have a shear called the Shoto, which is Tashishan steel. And it's a Japanese layered steel, which we think is the best shear out there. As long as you got a nice 440C Japanese stainless steel shear, you're in good shape.
Now this is a picture of a Rockwell hardness tester, and what they actually do, they'll take a diamond and they push it into the steel of the shears and see what degrees it takes for that diamond to penetrate the steel. And that's how it's actually tested. And that's something you want to ask your salesman is what's the Rockwell hardness of these shears? And they should know. If they don't, then just go to another company.
Occasionally, sometimes you'll open up a shear and you look on the inside and you'll actually see an indentation on the shear. And that was the shear out of that batch they tested for the Rockwell hardness. Nothing wrong with the shear, it's fine. It's just that you may or may not want that indentation. But that definitely tells you that that particular shear is the Rockwell hardness they say, because that's the one out of that batch they tested.
Now, two other things you need to know about shears is if they're forged or if they're cast. Forged shears, I like to compare that to like a race car. The forged shears, the molecules are close. They actually take the metal and press it into a mold. And the molecules are a little closer together. It's going to be a little bit more of a buttery cut. When you close them, they feel a little bit more buttery. They can get the sharper edge because the molecules are closer together. And this is the best for wet cutting and also for slide cutting. Cast steel I call it like an SUV. So if you are a heavy duty cutter, you're a gorilla cutter, you're going to be cutting big chunks of hair, that steel is poured into a mold and then it's hardened, and it's going to have a stiffer feel to it, so it doesn't flex as much, and we find it works really well for dry cutting hair.
Yeah, and if there's a salon where they're not doing all the shampooing and stuff like that, like a Great Clips or something like that, it holds up a little better there.
Yeah, now the downside of cast steel is if a forged shear falls on the floor, it could bend, and a well-trained sharpener might be able to bend the blade back and fix it for you. If it's a cast shear and it falls on the floor, it can break. Mm-hmm. And it'll break before it bends. However, if it's a Bonika brand shear, that's covered under warranty.
Yeah.
But if it's another brand shear and you drop on the floor, or your tip hits something hard, it could break off. So that's the downside of cast steel. But it's not that the cast or the forged one's really better than the other. What we've found, the cast steel is usually the middle ground price shears. The most expensive ones and the cheapest ones are forged, because forged takes more hand labor to them. Now this is a picture of a Pakistan factory. Now things may change in the future. We don't have any of our shears made in Pakistan. Sometimes we'll get cases or we'll get razors or what have you made from Pakistan, but the quality of the workmanship in Pakistan is not up to the par that we could use to train our sharpeners with Pakistan made shears. It's important the country of origin where the shears are made, because that tells you about the quality of the workmanship. You could have the best steel, but if the workmanship is done in such a way that you see the sparks flying in this picture, if the steel is overheated in the sharpening process, in the manufacturing process, you can take all that temper and the quality of the good steel out of there. So you've negated the good Japanese steel. So it's important to know the country of origin. Unfortunately, there are shears that are not stamped correctly with their country of origin. Very often in the factories, and we get them all the time, people trying to sell us shears for us to sell to you, and they said that they'll stamp whatever we want on it. But they'll put, cobalt steel or made in Japan or whatever. And as if that's not bad enough, there are knockoffs now. So you have to be very careful. We've seen a number of knockoffs ourselves where they'll have a brand name of the shear, and it's not made by that company. No. So and you got to be wise consumers. If a salesman comes in, he's got a bunch of different shears, a lot of different brands, and the prices seem a little low, they may not be the real brand.
Well, how do you check that? How do you do that?
I suggest you take your cell phone and you just go over, and you don't even have to call the company. You can just kind of look on there, pull up the website. Most of the most distributors are listed on the website of the companies that they sell their shears, and you should be able to find that salesman or that distributor or whoever listed on their website, or just call the company and say, hey, Millie's Sharpening is here selling some, your shears. Is she a official distributor of yours? And that way you can know. We know of one company that makes some really fine shears. We sell their shears. They're German shears. But sometimes they'll send their seconds or whatever to a third world country. Mm-hmm. And they can find their way back here.
Yeah. Okay, here's some rainbow colored shears. This is what we call our poison ivy shear. It's a green shear with some
turn around so you can see the bling.
And then this is the raven shear. It's a black shear. Now I happen to like the colored shears. Bonnie does not. The reason being, my background is marketing and sales. They're pretty. They're easier to sell. Her background was before she was in the scissor business. She was a school teacher. She taught science. So she knows that when they put the coating on there, the way they put it on there to stay is they raise the temperature to about anywhere between 400 and 450 degrees. They spray it with a chemical color, and it also has titanium in it. The titanium acts as sort of like an adhesive to keep the color in. But the metal softens a little bit when they do that, and that can affect the tempering a little bit. So if this was a 60 before they put the color on, it may be a 59 now. So it affects it a little bit, not a whole lot, and it doesn't really affect the way the shears can perform that much, other than the fact that the blade is a little different. It's a little different edge on it, simply because you don't want to take the color off. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the reason you buy these shears is because they're pretty, not because they're better quality or anything like that. Nothing wrong with buying something when it causes pretty because you're in the fashion industry. That's why my wife married me. Look at me. I'm so doggone pretty, she just had to marry me. Problem is, well, actually, I used to be doggone pretty. This is what happens after 40 years, and she's stuck with me now. So you just have to be aware of that. What's pretty today may not be quite so pretty 4 or 5 years from now. So be aware of that. But they're excellent shears. If this shear didn't have the color on it, and say it would last 15 years, by putting in the color on it, it may affect it, so it only lasts 12 years. But most stylists buy a new shear every 3 or 4 years anyway.
Well, they won't last 40 years, 42 years.
No,
like
they won't last 42 years like I did, that's right.
One other thing I want to say about it, sometimes a salesman, they'll tell you, oh, these are titanium shears. Titanium's what they built the space shuttle out of. And Jean's actually got 2 titanium knees now.
That's right, I got titanium knees, so I'm the titanium man.
There's this is PVD plasma coating is what it is. It's almost like electroplating, but I mean it's not electroplating, but that's the way it's put on. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of titanium in them. But if you look at the edge, it's silver.
You can actually see it better on
You
the black
can see it
shirt.
better on the black one, yeah. You're cutting with the stainless steel. You're not cutting with the titanium. Now they are good if you're one of those people that has a lot of acidity to your hands and you have a lot of nickel allergies. Sometimes that coating is good for you. But basically, you get them because they're pretty. You don't buy them because its salesman tells you they're any better. And this one happens to be I think our #1 bestseller at this time. So.
Poison Ivy and the Raven both are doing real well.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about handles now. And handles, to me, is the most important part of the shears.
Size matters when you're dealing with shears. You want to be sure and get the right size. And the way we do that is we take the shear, push it in there until you feel resistance on the thumb, and lay it on the middle finger. So right like that. And you see where the tip of the shear is and the tip of my finger there, that joint? That's the way you want it. Simply because when you're cutting with this shear, the shear you use most often, a lot of times you're talking to your client in the mirror. You're not really looking at the client while you're cutting. So you're cutting along, and if you have the right size shear, you're less likely to cut yourself. Too short, you cut your knuckle. Too long, you cut yourself down here. Now, when you're in cosmetology school, your teacher told you never cut past the second knuckle. If you didn't cut past the second knuckle, you wouldn't cut your knuckle, you wouldn't cut yourself down here. Well, ask your teachers how come they have scars down here and on their knuckles, because they cut past the second knuckle. When you
Measure my hand.
Measure your hand is going to be a 5.5 instead of a 6. Okay, you put it down like that, and you can see right there. That's at the upper level of her size, and that's a 5.5. You want it anywhere with that top digit, right up there in that top digit. And
hopefully you won't have the arthritic hands I have.
And you want to be sure and remember to do it on the middle finger. That's the way you want to do it, and measure it that way. And
hey, we know that middle finger. When Jean drives out in traffic, we see it a lot.
A lot of people wave at me, and they wave with that middle finger. I don't know why. I guess I'm a friendly guy, and they just love to wave at me. But they wave at the middle finger.
We see it a lot.
But now, after you get the length right, then you want to do the type of handles you want to get. And ergonomic handles. Several different type of handles. Some handles are straight. Some handles are offset. And then some handles have a twister to them. They twist and roll and different things like that.
So the thumb
rotates. Okay, and they're used for different things. Okay, straight handle shear is good. Now this happens to be a curved shear, but a straight handle shear is good for people who cut thumb up like this. Now we know that's not the way you're supposed to cut, but there are a lot of people who do that. If you're cutting like this, a straight handle shear is better for you. If you cut like you're supposed to with your thumb down, an offset shear is better for you. Now I'm going to put both of them in my hand. See this offset shear? If I'm cutting with that and want to cut a straight line, this is my elbow and my shoulder. If I was cutting with this, I'd have to raise my elbow and my shoulder a little bit, and I'm going to get tired at the end of the day. Now by the same token, if I'm cutting like this, the straight handle's better than the offset, because then I'm having to raise my elbow and shoulder a little higher, and I'm really going to be hurting at the end of the day.
Try this one.
Okay, now this one is the twister or swivel. You got your thumb down, got your thumb up. You can cut like this. See how that cuts? You can go up top instead of doing this, which is the same thing as this. You can do this, cut like that.
Don't cut it.
And that's, you know, my wrist is straight when I'm doing that. That helps prevent carpal tunnel. This will actually reduce stress on your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder, your lower back, and if you actually be vertically challenged or short, when you do it like this, you can actually gain about 2 inches in height. So it helps you, you don't have to stand on your tiptoes so much.
And show how it fits in a relaxed hand.
Okay,
Here's
take
my
your relaxed hand and just drop it down there, and it fits the relaxed hand. If your hand is more relaxed when you start off, it's going to be more relaxed when you finish. That way you can go longer. Now this is a particular shear. We were in a salon, and a lady called us and said, "Will you come sharpen my shears? I'm going to get out of the business. I just, at the end of the week, I'm just hurting all over. I can't stand it anymore, so I'm going to quit. I'm going to go home, and of course I'm going to sharpen, cut hair for friends and family." So she wanted a shear sharpened. While we were sharpening her shears in the salon, we loaned her this shear with a rotating thumb. It rocks back and forth. It's called the rocker, and she cut with it. We sharpened her shears. I gave them back to her, and I said, "Oh, by the way, how did you like the shears we loaned you?" And she said, "They're great. How much are they?" And we told her they were, and they were $198, and she bought a pair. Now remember, she was going to quit that salon. This was 10 years ago. She's still cutting in the same salon using this shear. The fact that she changed the shear reduced stress in her wrist, her elbow, her shoulder, her lower back, and she was able to get through the week without so much pain. And so it prolonged her career 10 years, maybe more.
There's been many times we've seen a pair of shears change somebody's life. It's amazing.
Now this is also a twister, but it has the 2 holes in it. I call it your self-defense shear. When you get off of your job at night, you put it on your hand. If anybody gives you any garbage, you hit them in the jaw, stick them in the neck, open and close it twice, and the fight is over with. It's gone. So, but it's very good. It's very comfortable. You can see how it fits in my hand. You can still do all those things and everything, but it's a very nice shear. Lefty shears. That's something you need to know. Lefty shears are they're backwards. They cross backwards from the right-handed shears.
Here, I'll hold them up.
Yeah, hold them up. They cross backwards, and if you have a left-handed person in your salon and they borrow your right-handed shears, they may come back to you not feeling just the same because they have to put side pressure on right-handed shears to make them work, and they can't affect the way the shears cut. Now, if you have a shear with teeth, a thinning shear or a chunking shear, definitely do not give a left-handed person right-handed chunking shears or thinning shears, because when they twist that handle, the teeth will bite into them and they can ruin the shears for you. So just be aware, if you're left-handed stylist in there, don't loan them your shears.
Do lefties have a hard time getting used to left-handed shears?
Some do. A matter of fact, they'll come up to us at a hair show sometimes, and they've been cutting 4 or 5 years, and they'll say, "You know, I've been cutting 4 or 5 years, and I just want to get me a pair of nice left-handed shears." And I'll always say, "Okay, but you have to try them before you buy them." And I say, because they may fold hair, and they look at me like I'm an idiot. They cut hair, and sure enough, it folds. Now, what's unusual about that, they might not be able to use an offset shear, but they could use a straight shear, or they could use a rotating thumb, a twister shear. This might fold hair. They might cut perfectly fine with this one, and that's not the case with right-handed people. Right-handed people can cut with any shear for the main part. So you just need to be extra careful if you're left-handed in your selection. You should always try the shear out before you buy it.
Now we want to talk about E for edges. And the edges are the thin surfaces where the blades touch. And that's where the actual cutting takes place. And there's 2 basic types of edges. There's the beveled edge, which is, you know, your scissors are beveled edges. The regular scissors are. But some of your barbering scissors, your German shears, are going to be beveled edges, and they have their place. They're going to usually have a little sound, go ch-ch-ch-ch. And they're going to be less apt to push hair. They work really well for barbering, scissor over comb, dog grooming, that type of thing. But they're not as sharp of an edge or as smooth of an edge as the convex edge shears. And some of those bevel edge shears will actually have like little serration, little teeth that will grab the hair. And those work good for maybe cutting children's hair where it's very slippery hair. And they have their place. Most hairstylists prefer a convex edge. A convex edge is going to be sharper, it's going to be smoother, it's going to slide to the hair, less effort in the cutting. It's a little bit more difficult to sharpen, but that's why we teach sharpening and we equip the sharpeners. And then there's also kind of a hybrid of the two. There's a semi-convex, and that's what all the rainbow colored ones are. The Raven he talked about, and you'll see a lot of rainbow colored ones. They're going to have a little tiny bevel on them, but they're going to cut similar to the convex edge because they're still hand honed inside, and they're going to have a very sharp edge. But those are sharpened a little bit differently. Sometimes you'll have a convex edge and someone is not knowledgeable about how to sharpen it, and they will turn it into semi-convex.
Or they have the wrong equipment.
They have the wrong equipment, yes. Well, and so if you get your shear sharpened and they have a ch-ch-ch sound, you know that someone's probably sharpened them incorrectly if they were sounding quiet beforehand. Now this is two pictures I found from the internet, and can you see how the convex edge is smoother cut? That's going to cause less damage to the hair, less split ends to the hair.
You don't see the little valleys in there where the hair is going to start to split apart.
Yes, yes, yes.
That you see in the beveled edge.
Now we have one shear here at Bonika, and actually it's our first shear. It's our flagship shear, which is hard to say fast. It's our Bonika International, and it has serration at the tip only. It's a convex edge. And the purpose of it is we found that it's great for cutting multicultural hair, over curly hair. We have a lot of people in the movie industry because Georgia is #1 over California and New York now for shooting motion pictures. And a lot of the stylists in this area love the International Shear because it'll work well on any client that sits in their chair.
No.
The A in the word shears is for alignment. Gene, can you talk a little bit about the alignment?
Alignment's very important. If we have a picture up there and you look at it, if you look at it, the way you test the alignment is you take the shears apart, put them on a parallel bar, and press down at the pivot screw. And then you hold it up to a light source, and you don't want to see any light between the parallel bar and the shear. If you do see light, then there is something wrong with the shear, and we'll show you some different pictures there.
Now, just to be clear, if you hold a pair of shears up to the light and you look at the blades, you're supposed to see light between the blades. Mm-hmm. That's because that's what we're talking about, alignment. The blades are actually curved toward each other so that they come down and they slice. So you will see light between the blades. But on the parallel bar, when you press down,
you're going
all the
to
light
eliminate the light.
Yes, yes.
And then at the factory, they check them out at the factory and check the alignment. And if there's an alignment problem, they'll correct it at the factory. And they do that by using a special anvil and a special hammer, and they tap the shears and work on them. One of the few things you need to worry about, those, if you notice the picture we have up here, the handles. Some of the handles are broken, even though this particular person, that's all he does all the time, and he has special equipment designed to correct the alignment. About 4 or 5% of the shears he deals with, he can break. And he knows more about those shears than any sharpener that comes into your salon would know, simply because he works with them every day. And if the guy in the factory is going to break around 4% of the shears, just think how much opportunity you have for your shears to break if you have somebody who is not as familiar with the metal as this guy is. He knows whether it's cast or whether it's forged. He knows what Rockwell Hardness is. He knows all those things. The sharpener has to guess at some of those things. So it's much higher. So if a sharpener says your shear's out of alignment, I may be able to put them back in alignment, but they may break. Just be aware that you could look up to 20% chance of them breaking your shears. So just be aware of that. There are some other ways to do it without hammering them, by doing the sharpening, but it's really very few sharpeners are skilled enough to do that. You need to be very skilled and have the proper equipment to do that, but you can adjust alignment without bending or hammering the shear.
Yeah, and I know how to fix the alignment, but that's something I very, very much hesitate doing because I don't care how experienced you are, how many years of practice you have, you always have the chance of breaking the shears. And so if the sharpener says, I need to fix the set, sometimes I'll use that word of alignment, you need to be very, very cautious and know that they have a good chance of breaking them. And I mean, you can tell them, hey, will you replace the shears if you break it? And if they say no, then you may not want to take the chance. So it just depends on you.
A lot of times shears that are out of alignment will cut fine. It's just that they'll need to be sharpened a little more often than usual, and they'll feel snippy. They won't feel just quite as good, but they're still functional.
Yeah.
So if he breaks them, they're not functional then. So you just need to be aware of that.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times you'll hear horror stories about the sharpener that's come up in the van, and he took the shears out to the van to sharpen, and then he stole their shears, drove off. He probably didn't steal the shears. He probably broke one, and he was too embarrassed to come back in and tell.
He did steal the shear.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the reason we stole it because he was embarrassed that he broke it. So
just be real cautious, and be cautious when someone. We'll talk about that about sharpening, but when someone comes up in a van, some excellent sharpeners work out of the vans, but that's also, you want to keep an eye on your shears. Now, the R in the word shears is something that, speaking of sharpeners, most of the sharpeners I've come across that haven't been trained, haven't been going to the sharpening conventions, have no idea about this, and that's the ride line. The ride line is the really smooth, shiny place on the inside of the shear. That's where the two edges ride over each other. That's where the term comes from. It's sometimes called the hone line. That has to be put down with water stones, done by hand honing. And when you buy a shear, when you're looking at a shear, you should take a look at that shear and make sure that ride line is even. And it should be shiny. There might be a few little grind marks in it, but the shinier it is, the more even it is, the better that ride line is. If you find it is really wide and narrow, like some of these pictures I'm showing you here, that's a sign a shear's out of alignment. One thing to have your shear go out of alignment because of over sharpening or dropping or whatever, but you don't want to buy a brand new shear that's out of alignment. So this is another thing you want to look at when you're purchasing that main shear of the business.
And that's another thing. When you buy a shear with a low Rockwell hardness, they're much more likely to be out of alignment.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Because the metal won't hold together.
Yeah. The last S in the word shear stands for source.
Yeah, source is very important. The main thing is if somebody comes into your salon and they want to sharpen your shears and they want to sell you some shears, you have to be able to get in touch with them. You have to know where they're from. If they give you a business card and it doesn't have their name, address, and telephone number on it, if it just has their name or just their name and a P.O. box, you probably don't want to have them doing your shears. There's a reason why they don't give you much information. It's because if they screw your shears up or they don't do a good job, you have no way of contacting them to ask for your money back. You just want to be sure that somebody's reputable. Usually most sharpeners now have a website you can go to which has all their information about it. We have a website, we have email, we have Facebook, we have blogs, Instagram.
Whatever the new things coming down the pipe will be on it, I'm sure.
So you can get a hold of us, YouTube. You see a lot of YouTube videos by us. So, you want to be able to contact the guy. It does absolutely no good for me to tell you, I guarantee my work for 2 weeks after I sharpen them, if you can't get in touch with me. You have to be able to call me back to come back to fix them. Or if I sell you a shear and says it's got a lifetime warranty against manufacturer's defects, and you can't find me. If you can't find me, the warranty's worth nothing. So you want to be careful about that. And where this comes into play a lot of times is the sharpener that comes by your salon. You want to know these things. Plus also at hair shows. You need to ask some certain questions at hair shows. Is the person selling the shear an authorized dealer, like we talked about before? Can you contact them after the sale? What does the warranty cover? Most companies will tell you they have a lifetime warranty against manufacturer's defects. However, what they don't tell you is all it covers is the screw and the bumper. Sometimes they don't even cover that.
No, because they consider that normal wear and tear.
Wear and tear, just like brakes on your car. So a lot of times all it covers is the screw. And with us, we're a little different. We cover the screw, the bumper. If you have finger rest and it falls out, we replace that for you. If you drop the shear and it breaks, say the tip breaks off, that's covered under our warranty. Also, most companies won't let you send them to somebody else to sharpen. If you have a local sharpener come by and sharpen your shears, they say that voids their warranty. They want you to send them back to them. And most of the companies that do that are charging $35 to $50 for sharpening, where most of the time when you get somebody come in from off the street to sharpen, who's driving by, it's about $25 is about the average price of sharpening.
Yeah. Well, so, it's going to 30.
Yeah, it's going to 30. But
tell about the ones that so-called free sharpening.
Oh, yeah,
send them back for free sharpening.
Some companies, if you look at their little warranty thing that they say, it's free lifetime sharpening, but it's a $25 shipping and handling charge for sending it in.
Yeah.
And then they have a disclaimer saying if there are any nicks in the blade, it's an extra $10. Well, most shears that need to be sharpened have nicks in the blades.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's that your free sharpening now is $35, and that's for shipping and handling.
Read the fine print.
Read the fine print on those, because you just have to be aware of
And
that.
even if they had free sharpening, you could send them back. I mean, you're going to be without your shears for
a week or two.
Yeah, and I've heard sometimes 6 weeks and longer.
Yeah,
so now you have to buy a second pair of shears.
Yeah, you just need to be aware of that. You got your shears up on your station. The towel girl or guy comes up, puts the dirty towels on top of your shears, picks your dirty towels out of your basket there, puts them on top, grabs the towels and takes them back to the back to wash them. Sometimes when they do that, they'll grab that top towel which your shears are on, put your shears in the wash machine and wash your shears. And now that's not too bad, because you got centrifugal force working, so they're on the side. But then they're very efficient. They'll take those shears and put them in the dryer. Now we got gravity. Kerplunk, kerplunk, just like you hear shoes in the dryer. They're real loud. And if those go through the dryer, they're going to be messed up. There's not much we can do for them. So that's an accident. Or your clients can grab them and cut plastic tags off clothing or off their shoes or something. Those are all accidents. That's covered for us for a year on all our shears. Another thing about our warranty, you don't have to have your receipt.
No.
And you don't even have to have your warranty card. You don't have to call us up and say, hey, I bought some shears, I want to register them. If you bought shears from us, they're in our computer, and it doesn't matter whether it's in our computer or not. It's got our name on it, we're going to cover it.
It says Bonika, that's
us.
us.
It says Bonika's us. Plus, you can have the local guy sharpen your shears, and it won't affect your warranty. Even if they sharpen them wrong, if it's a convex edge shear, and they put a beveled edge on it, we know we didn't do that. But you need a new screw, guess what? You get a new screw.
But we don't warrant somebody else's bad sharpening.
No, if they sharpen bad, you can't send them back to us and say,
we don't cover stupid.
somebody sharpened these wrong, I need a
Or
free
if
sharpening.
you try to apply a paint can opener with them,
yeah,
we don't
use them
cover
for a pair,
stupid. Yeah.
As a screwdriver, that's not covered either. Then your warranty's no good.
Well, you need to also ask when you're buying shears, and what about satisfaction guarantee? What if I get them and they hurt my hand, I don't like them? I mean, what's your recourse there?
Well, we have 30-day money back guarantee, or we swap them for something else.
Yeah, and sharpeners, some of them have two weeks, but it's still a reasonable amount of time.
Reasonable amount of time. Yeah. And most of the time, what we get is back is they bought a 5.5 and they decided they want a 6-inch shear. And it's nothing to do with the shear.
Well, we get a lot of the twisters back.
A lot of the twisters get back, or if they buy left-handed shears,
and
they can't get used to them, they want a right-handed shear. Sometimes you'll see on our website, you'll see mystery shears.
Yeah.
Those are our mystery shears. If they come back to us, we can't sell them as new. So we put them on there as mystery shears, and you get a good price on them. We talked about what every letter in shear stands for: steel, handles, edges, alignment, ride line, and your source. That's how you do when you're looking to buy a pair of shears. Now you want to take care of your shears once you get them, and that's when we talk about giving them spot treatment.